Have you ever wondered what you would do if you were forced to choose between your safety and that of your children? Today we will explore the powerful and moving story of a young mother who found the courage to break the chains of abuse to protect herself and her children. Stay connected until the end, because what Giulia had to face will leave you speechless, but above all it will show you that hope and inner strength can prevail over all darkness. But before starting this story, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any of our stories of courage and resilience. Giulia was only 22 when she decided to go and live with Marco, the man she thought would be her partner for life. At first, everything seemed perfect. Marco was charming, thoughtful, and seemed truly in love. However, as time passed, his love turned into obsession. Marco began to control every aspect of Giulia's life, monitoring her phone and following her every move. His insecurities and jealousies turned their relationship into a real nightmare. Verbal abuse was the first sign. Marco constantly criticized Giulia, belittling her and making her feel useless. Giulia's every attempt to maintain a minimum of independence was nipped in the bud. Marco insisted that she did not need to work or see her friends, saying she needed to devote herself completely to him and their children. This obsessive control increased over time, leading Marco to become more and more aggressive. The first episodes of physical violence were devastating for Giulia. He still remembers the first slap he received, a moment of disbelief mixed with fear. He hoped it was an isolated incident, but unfortunately it became a habit. Marco began to beat her regularly, even with kitchen objects and tools, and often in front of their children. Fear and shame prevented Giulia from asking for help. The scars on his body were only part of the torment, the internal wounds were even deeper. Marco's control didn't stop at physical abuse. Emotional and psychological threats arrived, including blackmail to spread intimate photos without Giulia's consent. Marco used these threats to further isolate Giulia from the outside world. It prevented her from visiting her family or seeing her friends, leaving her alone and vulnerable. Despite the fear and pain, an awareness began to grow inside Giulia: she had to protect herself and her children. He had to find the courage to escape from that house. One day, after a particularly violent attack, Giulia decided she couldn't stand it any longer. He looked into his children's eyes and understood that he had to save them from that hell. She gathered the little courage she had left and contacted an anti-violence center. With the help of sensitive and trained operators, he managed to plan his escape. It was a risky operation, but in the end, Giulia and her children managed to find refuge in a protected residence. And what do you think? Do you think it's easy for victims of abuse to find the strength to report? Leave a comment below and let us know your opinion. Your voice can make a difference. In the anti-violence center, Giulia began a long and painful journey of recovery. It wasn't just his body that needed care, but his soul as well. She attended individual and group therapy sessions, where she could share her story with other women who had gone through similar experiences. In those moments of sharing, Giulia began to rediscover her inner strength. She realized that she was not alone and that there was hope for a better life. The legal battle that followed was arduous and painful, but Giulia did not give up. With the support of the authorities and lawyers of the Anti-Violence Center, he reported Marco and started the process to obtain sole custody of the children. Marco, as often happens in these cases, tried to manipulate the situation, but the evidence of his violence and the testimonies collected were overwhelming. During the months spent in the shelter, Giulia learned to better understand her rights and to use the resources available to victims of abuse. The legal process culminated in a court decision granting her sole custody of the children. Giulia could finally start rebuilding her life without the constant fear of being persecuted by Marco. She felt an enormous sense of relief and a new determination to offer her children a peaceful and safe life. Today, Giulia is a free woman. At 26, she has rebuilt her life and dedicates herself to her passion of creating handcrafted jewelry, surrounded by her friends who have never abandoned her. His home has become a place of serenity and creativity, a refuge where he can finally live in peace with his children. Giulia also started volunteering at the anti-violence center that had helped her, offering support and hope to other women in similar situations to hers. For Giulia, the path to recovery was not easy. She faced many challenges, including rebuilding her trust in herself and others. He had to learn again to live without fear, to recognize and manage past traumas. Attending therapy sessions was crucial for her. Each meeting represented a step forward, an opportunity to rework the pain and transform it into strength. Giulia also found great comfort in the community of women she met in the anti-violence center. These women, with their stories of resilience and courage, offered her a living example of hope and rebirth. A crucial aspect of Giulia's journey was reclaiming her passions. Before violence entered her life, Giulia loved creating jewelry. After leaving Marco, she rediscovered this passion and began to dedicate herself to it with renewed vigor. Jewelry making was not only a creative activity, but also a means to find herself, to express her identity and her newfound freedom. Each piece she created was a symbol of her resilience, a tangible sign of her strength and her ability to transform pain into beauty. In addition to rebuilding her personal life, Giulia has decided to actively engage in supporting other women victims of violence. Volunteering at the Anti-Violence Center allowed her to give back the support she herself had received. She began sharing her story with other women, offering a listening ear, advice and emotional support. Her personal experience has given her a unique perspective, allowing her to deeply understand the challenges and fears these women face. Before continuing, like and subscribe to the channel by activating the notification bell. Your support helps us create new content that can inspire and support those in need. Giulia has become a point of reference, a living example of how it is possible to emerge from the tunnel of violence and rebuild a life full of dignity and hope. Giulia has also started participating in domestic violence awareness campaigns, speaking publicly about her experience to raise awareness and encourage other victims to seek help. It collaborated with non-governmental organizations and local institutions to promote the importance of reporting abuse and using available resources. Giulia is convinced that sharing experiences and raising public awareness are fundamental tools to combat domestic violence and to build a fairer and safer society for all. If you know someone who is experiencing a similar situation, do not hesitate to offer your support and direct them to the available authorities and associations. Every gesture of support can make a big difference. If this story was useful to you and touched your heart, we invite you to continue watching this video where we explore other stories of resilience and hope. Thanks for following us, and see you next time.